Hi and welcome back to the next video of the Ice Queen gown series. Actually, I changed the name because I realized that the German Snow Queen is actually also Snow Queen in English, so now it's the Snow Queen gown. And I have already finished or almost finished the first layer, the combinations, and now I went on to the second layer, the corset. And since the whole outfit should be placed in the 1900s to 1910, I was looking for a corset pattern, a historical corset pattern, and I found one in the book Corsets and Crinolines by Nora Wall. I hope that's right pronounced. This corset is dated to 1901. So I decided to go with that, and the first step was to scale it up to my own measurements, and I made the upscaling with the CAD software Clo 3D or CLO 3D because it is a software I learned using during my studies, and I made an avatar with my personal measurements and just scaled it up and tried to fit it on this avatar, and then I printed those pattern pieces and put them together. So, to be honest, I really hate and love mock-ups at the same time. The one reason because I hate them, for what I hate them, is actually the waste of time and material, especially material. So I decided to use old mock-ups that I don't have any use for anymore, to cut out the pattern pieces out of that. Of course that just works for smaller pattern pieces, but luckily the corset is made of really tiny pattern pieces in comparison to a skirt or so. I actually paid attention to a grain line so that I don't have any elasticity where I don't want it. So that was one thing I really paid attention, but for the rest I just tried to fit the pattern pieces on those old mock-ups. Then when I had cut out all the pattern pieces, I ironed them because I store my mock-ups in a box and they are quite wrinkly, so I ironed them, and afterwards I made the outline of the pattern pieces on the actual fabric so that I could sew along those lines. Once that was done, I checked the arrangements of the pattern pieces, and following those I pinned the pieces together and sewed them all together, so I had the first mock-up. So this is it. This is the mock-up, and it fits so good. I'm completely surprised by that because I thought it would be too big, and it isn't. You can see it really stretches here because there's so little room, but it is said that it should be 2 inches apart at the back. I sewed it close at the back so I can fit it better, and so I think that's the space I need done in the back. That's now really tight, and I will now place some boning to see if this is improving, and I think there will be the metal closure at the front. So this what's now dipping down will be lengthened, and I think that will make the shape of the corset even better. But I think overall it's really good. I'm really pleased. Here's enough room for a bum pad and other polstering here. So yeah, I'm really happy with it, and now I will place some boning. Well, not quite yet. I realized with only one layer of fabric I would have a raw edge on the inside of the corset if I place the bonings on the outside. And the boning channels aren't on the seam lines. So the boning channels aren't on the seam lines, so I have to somehow deal with the raw edges of the seam lines. So I decided to use the welding method. I found this one while googling because I had no clue how to do it, and luckily Auntie Google knew the answer. So I went on and did the whole process I did before again. I cut out all pattern pieces twice again, so that I now had for each piece 4 pieces in fabric, 2 for each side. So one is the outer side and one is the lining. In actual corset I will do this in 2 different fabric, I guess. So that's what I did next, and I ironed them and also marked the outlines. Now I had prepared every pattern piece and wanted to pin them together, and that's the moment I actually realized that I have to start at the center front or center back. And so I figured that it would be a smart idea to also sew in the front closure to already have it done once before I start with the actual corset. And I'm quite happy I did this, because in hindsight I was way more relaxed when I did it with the actual corset, especially because now I knew how much attention I had to pay to how big the gaps are for the closure, and the scariest thing to me was to make those holes for the pins of the closure. So it made the whole process a little bit more relaxed in the actual pattern, in the actual corset. I didn't work as neat as I would for the actual corset because I wanted to get it finished and actually start with the real project. And I was so excited to maybe one day have our corset, so I should have paid more attention to working neat, I think, because one of the big problems I had during making a mock-up is that the undermost layer often moved that much that I had to remake the whole seam. And it wasn't that bad, but I lost time because I had to remake it that often. But I learned a lot of thanks to that, because now I realized that I have to baste the pattern pieces together for the actual corset. And yeah, I didn't do it for the mock-up. I still didn't do it after I realized that that would be a good idea, but for the actual corset I will do that. Then I had read that it is a good idea to cut the seam allowance so that it wouldn't create some bulk. So I trimmed it, especially these inner two seam allowance, and then clipped it in so that the tension is less on the seam. So finally I had set the whole mock-up together and realized that something was off. It was really asymmetrical in front, and sorry I didn't film that because it was pitch black, it was at night. So there was a big asymmetry and I didn't know how that has occurred. But then I put all the pattern pieces or paper patterns onto the garment and realized that I had one set in mirrored. Okay, this one too, but here I messed it up. This one has to be like this, and then this one here on. So I had to pick this one piece out and set it back in. And it was sewn in like this. And you see, this part is not correct. So when I flip it, that's how it should be sewn in. Finally I got to the boning channels and realized I had no idea how to make them in the right size I needed, because the depiction of the corset showed that there were boning channels where 3, 2 or 1 boning was inside. So I had to figure out how big I have to cut those stripes. And I found, again, asking Auntie Google, that there are methods to use a measure form. And usually you could buy them, but due to lockdown and I didn't want to spend any money on that and I didn't know how, I really know that this measure form is the actual size of my bonings. So I decided to make my own, and I took a cardboard, and luckily 2 sheets of those cardboard were the height of my boning, so I just had to measure how big I have to cut those stripes. In this case it was 7 millimeters. Then I added 2 millimeters in order to give some room for the sewing line, and I hoped that this way the boning channels wouldn't be too tight. In hindsight I would maybe only add 1 millimeter, but I could or I can add the bonings without that much tension in most places, so I think it would be a good idea to just add a little bit more room. And then once I had cut those stripes out in the 3 different sizes, I just glued those 2 layers together. Next time I would use a waterproof glue, because when ironing those boning channels, the glue somewhat loosened and the 2 layers of the cardboard didn't stick together that good. I sewed the channels using a zipper foot and ironed those channels into the form with the seam allowance on the center back, so that would be hide once it is sewn onto the corset. Look, I have inserted the boning at the side and sewn on all the boning cases. And look how different this is. At this side there's no boning, here is the boning, and I think it looks so different. It's so amazing. And what is even more fascinating to me is here I have a lot of tension and it's really uncomfortable. But on this side, with the boning, I don't feel it anymore. It's so cool, and here's a tension on it, because I have sewn it together at the back to have to simulate like it would be tight laced, and so this would be the version when it's really tight laced, and normally it would be a little bit looser. And I think it's just amazing. I didn't expect it to fit me that well. I thought I would have to make way more alterations. I just made 2 mistakes again. Here, this boning should end approximately here, so it should run underneath the other one, like this one. Here too I made a mistake. I will show you in the close-up. But yeah, I now know that it will fit me. I'm a little bit wondering if I like that it comes down here a little bit, but same with the original. In the sketch of the original there's a slight dip here, so I think I will go with it. And yeah, and as I said, here I made a mistake. I should have put this over. Now here are those it doesn't look nice, and I made it here at the back as it should be. Here is this boning ends underneath this one, and this one ends underneath this one. So that's how it should be done, and I learned it this way. And what's so cool, I had the reference photo or the sketch of it and saw how to place all the bonings, and now it's really difficult to show you, so I think I will show you when I make the actual corset. Now I have created a mock-up to my satisfaction, and I really look forward to make the actual corset now. But I'm also really happy that I didn't skip the step of making the mock-up, because I learned really much. And Well, one of the really funny things I learned is to understand how other YouTubers are so fascinated by the fact that the corset really shapes the body. And for me, I didn't understand it really, but now it's so cool to know and to see how it's set together and to see the difference between the side with boning and the other side without the boning. I just did one side with boning because I didn't want to waste any more time, because now I really want to make the actual mock-up corset. So this is the first of 2 videos I will make for this corset series, and I hope you can get away with some tidbits for your own corset adventures. And honestly, it isn't that scary anymore once you have started it, so do it. And I hope I will see you in my next video. Until then, have a good time, have a great time, have a great time. And subscribe if you want. Yeah, bye!